Welcome, everyone. Okay, so my husband Eric and Penny are joining us today. We're gonna go through, I got a lot of requests for hips and shoulders, and you know what, we're just gonna go through a whole body yin. Okay, so make sure that you have a lot of pillows today. You're gonna want lots of support. Grab a comfy sweater or blanket just in case you get a little bit cold. Okay, and we will get started. So you're gonna want to take, if you have a bolster, you can ramp it up as such so that you have the far end maybe stacked under a couple of pillows. You can always use a longer pillow for this bolster. Okay. And then if you even want a little bit extra support, you can always add a pillow on the end. Okay, so walk your back up so that it almost touches the bolster or prop, and you're just gonna slowly lay yourself back. And then you'll bring your arms out wide. So the arms will come out to about a T shape. If that feels like too much for the shoulders, you can always drape them a little bit further down so that they point more towards the edges of your mat. Just make sure that your palms are flipped up. Okay. And then if you'd like, you can always bend into your knees, bringing soles of your feet together, knees out to the side. If you prefer, you can always plant your feet, drop your knees in towards one another, or you're welcome to just extend your feet out. Okay. So wherever you've chosen to land today, just begin to close down your eyes. Begin to settle into a place of rest. So instead of having to activate your muscles, can you take this body scan from the tips of your toes all the way up to the crown of your head? Wherever you notice tension or gripping or even pulling, can you just soften into that place and feel your body rest heavier? And so today's practice is really just going to be about rest. So I've been hearing from a lot of students and even just friends that the general feel right now is a little bit of exhaustion, overstimulation, a little bit of this being quite overwhelming. And often when we feel overwhelmed, we look for an answer. We look to try and fix that. And so instead of looking to do, I encourage you just to rest, to unplug for a moment, to recharge, and to remember that rest is truly one of the most important gifts that we can give ourselves right now. Wherever it feels like you're trying too hard within this pose, can you let go of that need to find depth and instead find your breath? Allow your chest and belly to rise up as you breathe in. And let your body rest heavier as you breathe out. Feel a slight lift of the body as you inhale and expand outwards. And a softening back through center as you exhale. And just continue to take a couple more deep breaths on your own time. You don't have to get anywhere. You don't have to do anything. You just get to simply breathe. And allow your body to come into this state of relaxation in which the parasympathetic nervous system takes over, also known as the rest and digest, where we create space to heal damaged cells, to create new ones, to destroy old ones. That we need these periods of rest and pause to reset, so that when we take that next step forward, it comes from a place of authenticity and true knowing, not out of a place of fear or lack, but out of just feeling that that next step is exactly where we need to land. I'm just going to bring in a little bit of movement. So you begin to extend through your right hand. So you might draw the fingertips a little bit further away from your body. If you want to make this more active, you can press the back of your hand and fingertips in towards the ground. And then just gently drop your chin over towards your left shoulder. Take about 3 full breaths. Feeling into the lengthening and sensation of your right arm, but also just allowing yourself to lean into that without having to do. And then on your next inhale breath, you'll lift your gaze up through center, and exhale, just soften into your right arm. Other side, extend through the left fingertips. Begin to create some length through the left side. And then as you exhale, begin to take your chin over towards your right shoulder. You can continue to make this active, or you can always soften into it if it feels like a little bit too much. And then when you come to your next inhale, you'll lift your chin up through center and gently release. If you want to take a little bit more sensation for the remainder of this pose, you're welcome to take your arms out a little bit wider, or you can even play with drawing your arms back behind you, still allowing the backs of your hands to be rooted. So instead of having your hands floating, you want to allow them to feel supported, maybe even sliding shoulder blades together so you get that extra lift of your chest. Lie down, please. And then let's gently come out of this shape. So you can slowly slide your hands closer down your body towards your hips. And then take your hands to opposite shoulders, like you're giving yourself a hug. If your legs are extended, bend into your knees. Heel toe your feet out wide and allow your knees just to drop in towards one another. And then allow your fingertips to drape down the sides of your body. You might even play with flipping your palms to face out if that feels nice. Allow your elbows to draw down your body away from your shoulders. Almost like your hands are just dripping to the edges of your mat. Yeah. Take one more deep breath in that shape. And then you'll gently untangle your arms, and you can reach your arms overhead. Take a nice big stretch. You might even clasp hands. And then find the other side. So whenever you're ready, you're just going to take opposite arm over top, hands draping the sides of the body, upper arm bones resting heavy. Feel how your arms rise and fall with your breath. But as your chest lifts up, so too do your elbows. And as your exhale releases, arms resting a little bit heavier. If you need to stay here longer, take as much time as you would like. Otherwise, you can begin to untangle your arms, reach overhead, just take a nice big stretch of the upper body. And then you can gently release your arms down beside you and roll yourself over to your right hand side for fetal position. So rest your head heavy into your right bicep, landing onto the right side of your body. Allow your eyes to rest heavy. Body almost in a sleeping pose. So instead of worrying about getting to the next thing, just allowing the spine to come to this place of neutrality, of rest essentially from this light expansion that we were creating across the chest, to come back to its center. When you're ready, use your left hand to press yourself up. And you can begin to turn towards the top of your mat. You can actually keep your bolster or pillows there if you'd like for support. Okay. And then place your hands underneath your shoulders. Now this can be a really nice place to just curl and round the spine or take some movements to find some fluidity, especially if you're feeling really sticky today. Continue to move until it feels like you're ready to melt back into the next pose. And the next pose is going to be child's pose, but we're going to add on a little opening for the shoulders, which you're welcome to take, but also don't feel like you have to. Okay. Why I said to turn this way, if you want that extra support for your hips, you'll just sit your hips back onto your pillow or bolster. That can just be nice to relieve any pressure of the knees. And then walking your hands forward, begin to slide your left shoulder under your body. So it's like you're threading the needle. Left arm reaches over to the right side of the mat. Left shoulder comes down. Just check in with how your left cheek is landing. I always like to take a pillow. So you can always take that pillow underneath your left cheek. And that'll give you a little bit more length through the side of the neck. Now, if you don't like this bolster behind your hips, you can always take it out. Big toes to touch then, and knees spread wide. Okay. Try to find a comfortable place within this shape. So check in with your left shoulder. If you notice that it's creeping all the way up towards your left ear and it feels like your arms are gathering in too close to the neck, just walk your left shoulder a little bit further away. If it feels like you have too much weight onto the left arm, you can always slide it a little bit closer into the body. Okay. Now at any point, if this feels like too much, just simply bring your left arm out from underneath. You can just walk your hands forward and take either forehead or cheek to the mat or to your pillow. Notice how it feels to just breathe, to sink in, to offer yourself this time to just simply be. Often, I think when we say we are going to rest or take a break from wherever we were or what we are doing, we end up mindlessly moving through that hour or so that we said we are giving to ourselves to reset. Whether it's scrolling on our phone or watching TV or just anything else that essentially is really just a distraction. This is rest, where we just allow our body to come into complete relaxation, where we allow our breath to be long and fluid, delivering fresh new oxygen to the body, dispelling old carbon dioxide, where we allow our eyes to close and just shut out the outside world for a moment, that even our eyes get a break. They're not constantly getting this input from the world around us. Notice how it feels to just be in that darkness. Can you allow yourself to slide a little bit deeper into that depth? Even softening into the corners of your mouth, maybe even allowing your jaw to release from the roof of your mouth. Now, those of you that have taken this twist, slowly beginning to switch sides. Right hand slides in beside your right shoulder. So you can just begin to press yourself up. Take your left fingertips all the way up towards the ceiling, like you're taking a big stretch through the inner line of the arm. And then as you exhale, you begin to walk your left fingertips forward, and then right arm will slide underneath. Now, if you need a break, you can always come to tabletop, take a couple movements, stretch it out the joints of the knees, and then you'll once again land into your child's pose with that added opening of the shoulders. Check in with where you've landed, and if you are offering yourself this space to just sink in and to melt, or do you feel like you're fighting or resisting? Can you pause on that resistance? Can you just lean into it and see where there's a softer place for you to land? Maybe just relaxing into the back of your neck or tops of your shoulders. Maybe just taking a couple of deep breaths and allowing whatever thoughts or emotions were coming up to just fade out, moving along with your breath. Maybe just giving yourself that permission to let go of anything outside of this practice, knowing that it'll still be there when we come back. But to truly rest, we have to give ourselves that permission to just be. And you might notice when you start to open up to this possibility of stillness, it's like the mind wants to sabotage and give you a million more things to think about and to feel into. And I always find just offering yourself non-judgment in those moments is really key. That a lot of us actually resist this idea of resting. And so naturally it will be uncomfortable. And when we feel uncomfortable in our bodies, we tend to move towards our minds to reason our way out of it, or to give us hope of when we'll shift through. And we start to count down the time we've spent in the pose, or we try to distract with thoughts. So know that this is a part of the practice. But just notice it and allow it to leave on its own time without judgment. the thoughts, any feelings, sensations, and recognize that none of these things have to do with your worth. And none of them have to hold space here on your mat. Gently begin to slide your left hand underneath or beside your left shoulder. Untangle your body. Reach your right fingertips all the way up. Gaze might even follow. And then as you exhale, release your right hand down and move back to your tabletop. So walking your knees in. Might feel nice to curl your toes under. And just find a gentle sway or curling or rounding, arcing of the spine. All right. When you're ready, walk your knees together. Walk your big toes together so that you're tucking all of your toes under. Okay, now I do suggest if you have some knee issues, take your pillow behind your knees here. And then you'll begin to sit your hips back onto your heels and stack so that your shoulders will actually come over top of your hips. Now make sure when you do sit back, you can reach behind and tuck your pinky toes underneath as they tend to stick out a little bit to the side. All right. And then let your hands rest onto your thighs. You can stay facing the top of your mat. You might just roll your shoulders out once or twice. Let go of any tension that you're holding on to there. Okay. And then take your chin in towards your chest. On an inhale breath, begin to take your right ear over towards your right shoulder. And then as you exhale, draw a little half circle, chin into your chest. Take your left ear over to your left shoulder. Let's just take one, maybe even two more to each side. Just rolling through the neck, but only these little half circles. And then the next time that your chin comes down through center, you can just lift your gaze back up. Pour your left ear over to your left shoulder. And there's always that option to take your left hand onto the right side of your skull. But if this feels like a lot, you can gently release your left hand back onto your thigh. Make sure you're not pulling your head over. Your hand is just resting gently. Okay. And then take your right hand beside your shoulder with your palm facing away and imagine that you're pushing into a wall. So you can begin to straighten out that arm. Now your arm might never fully straighten, and that's okay. If you want, you can always play with taking the hand a little bit lower, or you can play with taking it up to shoulder height. So just finding that space where you're getting a nice juicy opening through the right side of the neck and even into the shoulder and length of the arm. If it starts to feel really pinchy, then just come out of it slightly, bend more into your elbow to bring your hand in closer. And I just want you to feel into what's happening with the body. So even with all of these sensations, that there's still room to rest and to breathe. Know that you can always come out if it feels like a lot. I know that this one isn't necessarily pleasant. It's actually called dukkha, is a Sanskrit name of toe squat or toe stand, and that roughly translates as suffering. So if that's kind of what you're feeling, don't worry, you're not the only one. We're just here for about 3 more breaths. So try to soften into your shoulders, let your body rest despite everything that's happening around and maybe even within. And then you'll gently begin to bend back into your right hand. Place your right hand onto your thigh. Now take your left hand to your left cheek and lift your head up through center. All right, if you're dying to go forward, try to move slowly. Walk your hands out in front. So you're gonna meet back into your tabletop. And then don't tap the feet, but just untuck the toes. Again, you can always sit back onto a pillow. This time we're gonna sit onto the shoelace edge of the feet. So this should feel like a nice release from where you just were. Okay. Once again, hands onto your thighs. You can roll your shoulders once or twice. And then when you're ready, this time your right ear is dropping over to your right shoulder. Make sure that that's a comfortable place. Always optional to place your right palm onto the left side of your skull. And then when you're ready, pick up your left hand and like you're pushing a wall away, begin to straighten out the left arm just to a comfortable place. So you'll notice that my elbow isn't actually straight because that's the edge that my body is telling me it's okay to stay in. Always optional, right hand can come onto your thigh if that feels like a lot. And then allow your eyes to close down if you've opened them at any point. Imagine that your eyelids are resting heavier and just move through the body into those areas of tension. And imagine that you're just melting that tension away. So that as you breathe in, imagine your inhalation as a warm liquid that's moving into those areas that are gripping or tense. And your exhale is a cooling breath that just washes that away, almost like rinsing with water. So your inhale is where you begin to melt into that place of gripping or stubbornness. And your exhales, where you let that go, maybe you soften a little bit further. Check into your right hand. We tend to want to grip with those fingertips. You can even just take the palm if you want up into your lap. You're already halfway through this side. Notice any resistance that's even coming up, not necessarily body-wise, but in the mind. Can you give more attention to your breath? And find some ease as we close out this side. Slowly, you'll begin to bend back into your left elbow. Left hand comes back down. Take your right hand to your cheek and lift up through center. All right, a little bit different. We're gonna stay with our legs for just a moment. Begin to walk your hands back. Lean into your hands. Optional, you might even play with picking up your knees, stretching out the tops of your feet and ankles. It might feel nice to tip your chin up towards the ceiling and lengthen through the front of your neck. Just holding here for about 3 breaths. So if it feels like too much with knees lifted, you can also always take them back down. Allow your heart to rise with your inhales and let your body rest heavy with your exhales. And then over the next breath, you can slowly lift your chin back through center and walk your hands in towards your body. Shift over to your right hip and then scoop your legs out and in front of you. All right, this should feel pretty nice for the backs of the legs after all the compression we just went into. So those of you that don't always love forward folds, you might love this right now. Okay, so you can take your pillows or props onto your legs so that you have a place to fold in which you are supported. So instead of it just kind of being rounded and hanging out, try to stack your props, whatever you have available, so that your forehead has somewhere to support. So you can keep that length through the back of the neck and that you can really soften into all those muscles that run alongside the spine. So even if it's not a really deep hinge at the hips, that's okay. Another good way to support the body, especially if the hips don't want to crease, is to actually take a bolster underneath your knees or thighs, and then you can begin to fold over top of that prop. Okay. Check in with where your body has landed and that it does feel comfortable in this shape. If you want a little bit more length, you can think about shining your tailbone back behind you, almost like it's peeling away from the earth. And then try with each exhale breath to let your body draw closer and closer towards the ground, so that you're not trying to hold yourself up, but that you're really, truly allowing yourself to sink in. And remember that this is about rest. So if it feels like you're doing too much, you probably are. So take another prop, grab another pillow, even if you have to get up and grab it. I promise you that you will be able to support your body to release if it has the appropriate amount of support. I always like to think of our body as this vehicle that is driving us through our lives. And I know that I personally have been there many times in which the check engine light was blinking. In fact, I've done it in my physical car, so I know I've done it to my body vehicle. And you just keep driving. And you know that something's wrong, and you know that there are those signs that you need to slow down and check in. But we start to go to the mind and say, just one more. If I can just get through this, or I just need to push a little bit harder. And so this is your reminder to check in with what's a little bit sticky, with which lights are blinking at you right now, with what are the warning signs your body is giving you that you need to step into a little bit more rest. So this might be physical rest, it might be mental rest, perhaps just resting a weary heart for a moment, resting from having all the answers or from controlling, and just simply allowing yourself to be. Remembering that your physical body is this vehicle that's driving you through this moment, through tomorrow and the next week ahead, and that it too needs nourishment. So whether it's this practice or any other practice that really truly feeds your soul, feeds your body, it's just to check in with that. You might even have some ideas come up as you find stillness here of what it is that you're craving. Sometimes it's movement, dancing, good food. Maybe you're just craving time or space. So even if the mind is active, you can just allow it to sift through these thoughts and experiences without it having to work. So it's almost just like it's on screensaver mode, that it's just idling, but it doesn't actually have to go anywhere. It doesn't have to figure out. Okay, so just coming to the last few breaths of your fold, can you almost just drift through these?
Follow your inhales and your exhales. Take your time in coming out of your fold. So stack your vertebra one at a time. Hands walk up the length of the legs. Head will come up last, so chin still tucks in towards your chest. And then it might feel nice to continue to walk your hands back and just lean into your hands. Optional, you can bend into your knees and windshield wiper your knees over to the left and over to the right. I'm going to move into a variation of deer pose. So walk your hands back up in towards your seat. Shift your hips over to the right side of your mat. And then take your right knee back behind, so it's more off to the side. So your left shin is going to be parallel to the front edge, and right shin is about parallel to the long edge. Okay. Grab your bolster or pillows and begin to transfer those over towards your left hip. Okay. In this variation, we're going to recline somewhat backwards. So you don't have to go fully back. It might be more of a twist off to the side. Okay. But begin to drape your body over top of the bolster. So you might start by just taking the left side body over top. So the side of your rib cage and cheek might be on your bolster. If you want to take this more into the full recline variation, instead of going off to the side, you'll actually turn so that your shoulder blades are squared to the bolster and then begin to lower yourself down. Now, ideally, this back knee won't lift up, but if you notice that it is and there's no pulling, you could always place a pillow or a block underneath. Now, if it feels better for your back foot, instead of having the big toe edge against the ground, if it feels better to flip so the top of the foot is against the ground, that's also okay. But just making sure that when you've landed in this pose, there's no pulling on either of your knees. So you're looking for an opening into your right quadricep, maybe even hip flexor. If laying back at any point feels like too much, walk along the edge of your left leg. And then you can always just play with leaning off at an angle so that your right shoulder is about in line with your bent right knee. So it might take a little bit of time to figure out that perfect angle to fold back into or open up back into. But once you've found it, can you once again try to find that state of ease and relaxation? So even if you are feeling a lot of sensation, you might even shift out of that slightly. So there's less sensation, which offers you more space to just simply unravel. When you are given this space here on your mat, notice what shows up. Notice the thoughts. Notice how you're feeling. Notice where your mind wants to go. Almost like a train just chugging along that is trying to pull you in a certain direction. And then notice if you need to go there. Sometimes we do, where it's telling us we need to physically shift or shift something in this moment. But sometimes our mind is just uncomfortable with stillness and it's asking us to distract, to figure something else out, to add to the to-do list. But this is your reminder that you are free to just be in this moment. You can come back to those thoughts once we've closed off this practice. But this is a time to rest. Give yourself space. Let go of the judgments. Let go of the expectations. And just take 5 more breaths. Now, if you need longer in this pose, you're welcome to stay and just join in when you're ready. Begin to roll yourself over towards your left side. So you're walking along the left edge of your mat to come all the way forward. And you can scoop your back knee around and in front. If you need some shifts, you might walk your hands back. Just gently drop your knees to the sides. We're just gonna find the other side. So you can actually stay with your bolster as it is, and you're just gonna flip yourself so that your legs come to the other side. Bolster towards your right hip. If you're looking to flip the body more up so that your ribcage is square to the ceiling, you'll take the bolster more towards your low back than your right hip. Separating the knees, placing your left leg somewhere that's comfortable, whether it's top of the foot down or inside edge of the foot. You might play with draping off to the side. You can always be up onto an elbow, or you might lay all the way onto your bicep. You might play with turning your heart up towards the ceiling a little bit more. If you need to tuck your left foot closer in. The further back you pull your left knee, the more sensation you're going to receive into your left thigh. The closer in it is towards your right leg, the less sensation you should feel there. So you can always adjust that as well. Remembering that there isn't a race to get to the end of the pose. That this is about the journey. That there isn't really an end game, so it's okay to rest. That we're not going to miss out on something, we're not going to miss out on those extra 5 seconds that we were fidgeting around to get comfortable. They're not going to change the experience if we take that time to get comfortable. But if we don't take that time needed to come into this place of relaxation, it will change the experience and will probably lead to more resistance, perhaps more challenge or frustration with staying still. So really, really important that you're balancing in that ease of the pose. That even if it takes you a while to land there, that you can eventually journey into this place where you can just be completely soft and supported. Since we've been going through this journey of just checking in with the body, notice where your fuel tank is at right now. It might have constantly been filling up since you landed on your mat. but it might still not be full. Perhaps it is brimming over the edges, but just to get really, really honest with yourself about how much gas you have in the tank. And when we try to rush through or take that shortcut, we often miss things along the way and we have to double back, or we break down somewhere and we end up taking more time trying to fix the pieces or put it back together. So just making sure that you have a sustainable amount of energy in that tank to move you through the rest of tonight and tomorrow. And then if you feel like it is fairly empty, can you go a level deeper, really sink into those layers of being and begin to acknowledge what is using up your energy, what is taking your fuel away. And is there a perspective that you could embrace in which you don't have to burn up that fuel? Is there a shift that you can make to just let that go? Even if it's just for a couple of breaths. Take about 5 or so more breaths on this side. Again, you're always welcome to stay longer if you feel like you're in that place where you're finally settling in, allowing your breath to become a little bit deeper, reminding the body that it's okay to be here. And then when you're ready, you'll roll more towards your right hip. And then begin to walk yourself along the edge of your mat. Take your time, there's no rush. And then you'll shift your back leg around and in front. You can bend into your knees. You might drape your head back. You might wash your knees side to side. And you'll begin to find your way onto your back. And you can always bring a pillow underneath the back of your head if that feels nice. You can always take your props over to your right hand side, because that's the side we're going to be twisting to. Now, once you land on your back, it might feel nice to take a giant stretch, or you can curl in tight. You can windshield wipe your knees, whatever your body is craving. I'm going to cue figure 4 twist tonight, but if you just want a really standard twist, you're welcome to take that and I'll cue that after. So figure 4 twist, start by pressing the soles of your feet into your mat, knees point up to the ceiling, and use that pressing of the feet to lift your hips up and over to the left side. Keep your right foot planted, and then you'll cross your left heel over top of your right thigh. When you're ready, you'll slowly roll your knees over to the right side of your mat, keeping that figure 4 so that your left foot will actually plant onto the ground. And then there's a bind available right hand to your left foot or ankle or even shin if you'd like. Now, if this isn't available, the left foot on the ground, this is where a bolster will actually come in handy, and you can allow your foot to land onto a prop or block, just making sure that your right knee can come down towards the side. Okay.
if you don't want to take the bind, then you're welcome to just take the arms out wide. You might make this more active, rolling your left hip towards the ground to get into the sides of the glute and hips. Some of you might explore just allowing your left knee to cross down and rolling more towards the big toe edge of your left foot. So there really is no right or wrong way to come into this twist. Now, if the crossing of the legs doesn't feel good for your body, you can always take your knees together. It can be nice to take a pillow between the knees. Knees will come into your chest, and then you're just dropping them over to the right. And then there's always that option to place a bolster or pillow underneath your right knee. Notice if your body feels like it's being held up by your muscles, can you trust the earth and your mat to hold you up? So just let your shoulder blades rest heavier. And then in the back of your head, create a deep imprint into your mat. There's this saying that my dad told me quite a few years ago, and it's actually stuck with me and has been one of the kind of phrases that I come back to within a yin practice, is that you can't keep giving if you have nothing left to give. That in order to give back to the people around us, our careers, our life, there's got to be something in the tank for us to take from. And so it really is this continuous cycle of filling up the tank, to take away from it sometimes, to give out, and then to give back to ourselves and refuel. And we just go through this continual circle or pattern of losing energy and then bringing it back. And I think the really important thing is to never get to that point that we're below empty, we're those last few drops, and that's what we're running on. That we always have enough fuel in the tank to feel supported, to feel safe within that moment and maybe the rest of that day. And even here, noticing if you're pushing this so far that you feel like it's not sustainable, can you just lessen that so you can give yourself a place to relax, to bring in some more space to just simply be. If your legs are tangled, you're welcome to untangle them, or you can slowly lift your knees up through center and untangle them after. Just really whatever feels best for your hips. And then if you need some movement side to side, you can just rock your knees out. You can take knees into chest. And when you're ready, finding the other side, feet plant to shift your hips up and over to the right. Right ankle crosses over top of your left thigh, figure four. And then knees lower all the way over to the left so that your right foot plants on the ground or on a bolster. And maybe your right arm extends out and gazes over that shoulder. Find whatever variation of twist you did on the other side and just notice how that feels. Can you create space to just hear your breath? To let your eyes rest heavier. 'Cause, 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 'c that rest isn't selfish and it's not weak to have to pause. It's actually a huge superpower to be able to sit in the stillness and just reset. Rest is really this definition of the yin energy, the feminine cooling energy, which balances out the masculine yang, the busyness, the drive, the fire, the passion. That yin is calming. It's moon energy. It's a little bit slower, mindful. And our world today, it's very, very yang, especially right now. And we're being offered this opportunity to step into the yin. We're being offered this opportunity to slow down. And so just notice if you're resisting that. I know over the past 2 weeks that I've definitely had moments where I felt like it wasn't okay to rest. I needed to be doing something. But I think one of the most important things that we can do is just listen to our bodies and notice what they're asking of us. If they're craving movement, then we move. If they're craving stillness, we just take a moment to sit and breathe. Not necessarily distract with technology, but to truly, truly give yourself that moment. That when we say and we acknowledge what we need, that we actually offer that to ourselves rather than just take another distraction to keep us busy and away from those needs. Now, if you do need a little bit longer on this side, of course, this is our last pose before Shavasana, so you're welcome to stay for a few extra breaths. You're ready to come out, just slowly lifting knees up through center and untangle your legs. Take any movements that feel good, shifting your hips back into the center of your mat. You might draw your knees in tight. If you want that extra support for low back, you can always take your bolster or pillow underneath the backs of your knees. Okay. And I just want you to come to this place of complete and full relaxation, where you don't have to give anything out. Anything that you are giving, you're actually giving to yourself. Whether that's a space to feel, to breathe, to just simply be where you are, as you are, without judgment. Shavasana, perhaps the most important pose of our practice, where we truly just allow ourselves to let go and to trust that we are safe and we are supported, even without having to do. That even here, you can rest your weary heart, your tired mind, and allow your body to just bring you through this breath by breath. I'll leave you here in Shavasana to close off your practice. And please take your time coming out of this. You have so much time. Bottom of my heart. Namaste.